For the third straight week, we are talking transit because this plan is a big one and it has the potential to affect just about everybody in our region. The Transformational Mobility Network includes 110 miles of rapid transit corridors like the light rail, 140 miles of busing, 115 miles of greenways, 75 miles of a bicycle network, and a lot more. Now, 2 weeks ago, we heard from Mayor Pro Tem Julie Eisel giving her full support for the plan. Last week, we heard from Republican consultant Larry Shaheen, who thinks more needs to be done to engage other towns around Charlotte and leaders up in Raleigh. Today, we're hearing from the woman who is really in charge of making it all come together. Joining us today on Flashpoint, Kelly O'Brien. Kelly is the Chief Advocacy and Strategy Officer for the Charlotte Regional Business Alliance. Kelly, thanks for coming on Flashpoint. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Ben, for having me. I am a loyal viewer. I tape your show and I never miss an episode. So it is really an honor and a privilege to be here today.
We like to hear that. We like to hear that. All right. First of all, explain to us, we know this is a big plan and proposal, this Transformational Mobility Network. Explain to us, what is the Alliance's role in this? There's a lot of stakeholders in this thing. What is your all's role in this?
Well, thank you for acknowledging that this is a really big effort. In fact, it has the potential to be the largest economic development initiative in the history of the state of North Carolina. And it has the potential to really transform our region and have positive impacts in all corners of Mecklenburg County. So it's big, there's a lot of people involved, and the Alliance has the unique role of being the voice of business. So we're really passionate about making sure that the region is competitive and that we have the opportunity to attract businesses and to retain businesses. So for us, so much of it is really about competitiveness.
Tell me, who is in charge of sort of coordinating between the different governments? Is that the city of Charlotte? Is that who's in charge of that? Because we know, as I said, there's a lot of stakeholders. There's the business community, but there's also the cities and towns outside of Charlotte. There's the other counties. There's the folks up in Raleigh who have to sign off on any referendum that goes on the ballot. Who's coordinating all of that?
Sure. So the Alliance is playing a really important role working with the cities, with the towns. We will be, working in Raleigh, but we really started our efforts earlier this year by securing thought leadership from our hometown UNC Charlotte, Urban Institute, and NC State's it's ITRI, it's the Institute for Transportation Research and Education. And what we did is we engaged them to do an economic impact study, an EIS. And the EIS, we conducted dozens of focus groups with more than north of 100 stakeholders from Mecklenburg, from elected officials, business leaders, members of chambers of commerce, and the counties that touch Mecklenburg County. So it was really an opportunity to hear from decision makers, what should the Transformational Mobility Network be? What is it going to take for Mecklenburg County to be cutting edge as it relates to infrastructure? And we really also want to acknowledge the leadership of Mayor Lyles and her commitment to making sure that Charlotte continues to grow and absorb the growth that is happening. And so it's really a collective effort to answer your question. And yes, the Alliance right now is positioned to be the quarterback to help remind the decision makers and help the voters understand why this is really critical and benefits everybody.
How do you get buy-in from some of these surrounding counties who might not be as leverage as Charlotte is and might not have as much to gain from a silver line or a red line or any of these other major transits?
Well, Ben, there is our Council of Government, Centralina, recently made a presentation to the City Council, and they got an adoption of their plan from their board for what's called Connect Beyond. And in your mind's eye, if you think about the region, the Central Alliance footprint is 12 counties, 2 states. Our footprint with the Alliance is 15 counties and the 2 states. But Connect Beyond is a regional transportation transit plan, comprehensive. The Transformational Mobility Network, TMN, focuses on Mecklenburg. So we're one piece in that larger puzzle, but it's really the spine of the whole plan. And the plan is broad in that it touches so many different elements of transit and transportation. So there is definitely something for everyone, but the collective, again, really helps to absorb the growth that's happening and make this region competitive. It is absolutely critical that we continue to keep our eye on the ball and make these investments now.
I know it came up in the last couple of weeks, the proposal of a 1 cent sales tax here in Charlotte to help pay for this. And I know that in order for City Council to put that on the ballot, which they would have to do, they'd have to get permission from state lawmakers. One critique that some people have had, including Tarek Bakari, City Councilman, Larry Shaheen, who we had on the show last week, who's a Republican consultant, is that state lawmakers are not being brought in this process enough. Take a listen to a quick soundbite from Larry from last weekend here on Flashpoint.
With respect to the city, I can understand how a lot of folks in the city think that they need to drive the bus, but we are a Dillon Rule state, and the legislature is going to have its say. So we have to make sure to have buy-in from them from the beginning, not at the end, because just putting them in a box and asking them to check yes or no is not how we're going to get this done, and I can guarantee you it's the way for this process to fail.
And let me show a tweet from Tarek Bakari, City Councilman, who he and Larry went up to Raleigh, and he tweeted, "What we accomplished in Raleigh in over 24 hours could and should have happened over the last 24 months. The North Carolina General Assembly doesn't want to see a polished plan. They want to be partners in crafting it." Let me get your response.
Sure. Well, first of all, we are really excited to have support from both sides of the aisle. I mean, the fact that there is agreement in such a, divisive political environment, that there needs to be the investment in infrastructure, transportation, and transit in order to keep our region competitive. So we really appreciate what Larry and Councilman Bakari are saying, but I think that they also know that we, with this economic impact study as an example, have had the input from legislators, from executive elected officials, from community leaders, and from businesses. So we have known from day one that this is not a city-centric plan, that the towns of Mecklenburg, it's a county plan. So we're really all on the same page, and we're excited to have input and involvement from a number of partners.
Speaking of being on the same page, one thing that they've also made the point of is that they feel like the red line, the commuter rail going north, has to be the #1 priority, not the silver line or anything like that when it comes to rail. What is your response to that?
Well, there has to be a mobility solution for the North. And again, that has been a top kind of a guiding North Star from the beginning.
Is it the priority?
It is absolutely a priority.
Okay, and what's the timeline for this as far as we put this on the ballot for next year, the sales tax then goes into effect the following year after that. What's the timeline? Because we're talking about perhaps, 10 years out before we see any changes in at least the rail lines?
Well, I would say that even the premise of your question speaks to the urgency of why it's important to advance this. Yes, I mean, this does not have, rail lines do not happen overnight. However, there are elements of the plan that can be realized, pretty quickly. But we have to make sure we do it right. And that's what's most important. And that's why all of the conversations, that happened with the economic impact study with the focus groups, the conversations that have happened as we are socializing the results of the economic impact study, as we visit and talk to economic development professionals and chambers of commerce. Again, we keep going back to it is critical for our region to stay competitive. The cat is out of the bag. This is a great place to live. I mean, we're 3-4 hours from the ocean, a couple hours from the mountains. We have this international airport. It's the it place. And we have to make sure that we do this right, that we find the solutions that are needed for the entire county, and that we create this spine that is part of the bigger picture that the Connect Beyond proposal encompasses.
Well, listen, I don't think anybody can disagree that Charlotte certainly seems like it's the place to be. And you can see that just in the number of people moving here on a daily and weekly basis. All right, Kelly O'Brien with the Charlotte Regional Business Alliance. Kelly, thank you so much for coming on and talking about this. We do appreciate it.
Well, Ben, it has really been a privilege. And, I am so thrilled that the Alliance is committed to working with all parties in the region and leaders in Raleigh to make this a reality. And I really encourage your audience. The economic impact study that I referenced is on our website. And I look forward to coming back and continuing to discuss how we make this happen.
Absolutely. You can come back. All right, Kelly, thank you so much. We appreciate it.